In this video, we're going to talk about blood vessels. There are three types of blood vessels: artery, vein, and capillary. Arteries carry blood away from heart. Veins carry blood back to heart. Capillaries connect smallest arteries to smallest veins. The wall of the blood vessel is made by three layers. These layers are called tunics: inner layer, medial layer, and external layer. The inner layer exposed to blood. It's made by simple squamous cells. These cells are called endothelium cells. The endothelium cells act as a selective permeable barriers to allow materials in and out of the blood. The cells also secrete chemicals that can stimulate dilation and constriction of the blood vessel. Normally, the endothelial cells can repel blood cells and platelets to adhere to it. Prostacyclin is the chemical that keeps platelets from a clot, so the blood can flow freely within the blood vessels. The middle layer of the blood vessel wall consists of smooth muscle, collagen, and elastic tissue. This layer strengthens the vessels and prevents blood pressure from rupturing them. It also regulates diameter of the blood vessel. The external layer of the blood vessel consists of loose connective tissue that often merges with the neighboring blood vessels, nerves, or other organs. This layer anchors the vessel and provides passages for small nerves, lymphatic vessels. The anatomy of the blood vessel wall is shown in this slide. The large vein and artery, which are close to the heart, their blood vessel is relatively bigger. The wall is relatively thicker. It's made by three layers, as we mentioned earlier. The inner layer is the endothelium cells. Then there's a basement connective tissue membrane. The middle layer is the smooth muscle. The outer layer is connective tissue penetrating with nerves. The artery and the vein, their structures are similar. When these blood vessels are away from the heart, the wall becomes thinner. The lumen of the blood vessel becomes smaller. For vein, the structure still stays the same, but for artery, when it's away from the heart, there's additional elastic tissue on the outside of the base membrane and outside of the smooth muscle layer. Elastic tissue is called elastic lamina. Capillary is another type of blood vessel. Capillary is relatively thin. It only contains endothelium cells and the basement membrane. The thin layer of the endothelium cells will allow the materials to rapidly exchange between capillaries with organs. Arteries are classified by size. The biggest arteries include aorta, subclavian, pulmonary, common carotid, or common iliac arteries. Arteries have additional layers called elastic lamina. It's located between the inner and the medial layer of the tunica. So inner elastic lamina is outside of the inner layer of tunica. Then outside of smooth muscle, the medial layer, there's another external elastic lamina. The smallest arteries are called arterioles. In some places, some arteries are short. Those short arteries will link the arterioles to capillaries. There are sphincters around the entrance from artery to capillary. And this figure shows the sphincters here that allow the artery to deliver the blood to capillaries. Aneurysm is a weak point in artery or heart wall. It forms a thin-walled, bulging sac that pulsates with each heartbeat and may rupture at any time. Most common sites of aneurysm is abdominal aorta, renal arteries, and arterial circle at base of brain. It can cause pain by putting pressure on other structure. It results from congenital weakness of blood vessel, trauma, or bacterial infection. The most common cause for aneurysm is atherosclerosis, and hypertension. There are some sensory structures in walls of major blood vessels that monitor blood pressure and chemistry. These structures can transmit information to brainstem to regulate heart rate, blood vessel diameter, and respiration. There is a baroreceptor on the carotid blood. It locates in the walls of internal carotid artery. It monitors the blood pressure and allow for baroreflex, as well as transmit signals through glossopharyngeal nerve. Carotid bodies also contain chemoreceptor. It's an oval-shaped structure that is near the branch of common carotids. It monitors the blood chemistry. It can transmit signals through glossopharyngeal nerve to brainstem, which is the respiratory centers. It can adjust the respiratory rate to stabilize the pH, concentration of carbon dioxide and oxygen. Chemoreceptor can also found in the aortic artery. There is 1, 2, 3 bodies in the wall of the aortic arch. It's the same structure and function as the carotid bodies, but it's innervated by the vagus nerve. Here's a slide showing the baroreceptor and the chemoreceptors in the arteries superior to the heart. This is the baroreceptor on the aorta, carotid receptor, carotid body, here located to the carotid common arteries. Now we have a good understanding of the structure and the different types of the arteries. Let's move to the capillaries. Capillaries are smallest blood vessels in the body. The function of the capillaries is to exchange gas, nutrients, waste, and hormones between blood and the tissue fluid. Capillaries is made by endothelium cell and the basal lamina. It has a very thin blood vessel wall. There are 3 capillary types that are distinguished by the materials that pass through their walls. One is the continuous capillaries, the second is fenestrated capillaries, and the last one is sinusoid capillaries. The continuous capillaries occur in most tissues. The cells are linked by tight junctions to form a continuous tube with intracellular cleft. It allows passages of solutes such as glucose. Parasites wrap around the capillaries and contain the same contractile protein as muscle. So it regulates the contraction of the capillary as well as the blood flow. The second type of capillary is fenestrated capillaries. This type of capillaries can be found in kidney and the small intestine. Those organs require rapid absorption or filtration of the materials. The endothelial cell in this type of capillaries are riddled with holes called filtration pores. This will allow the passages of small molecules. Sinusoid capillary can be found in liver, bone marrow, and the spleen. This type of capillaries will allow proteins, clotting factors, and new blood cells to enter for the circulation. Here's a structure shows the 3 types of capillaries. This is the continuous capillary. We have endothelial cells. The cells are connected with each other by tight junctions. We have a parasite cell that can regulate the blood flow. Fenestrated capillary, which require the rapid absorption or filtration. So those are the filtration pores allow the material to go in and out. Sinusoid capillaries are found in liver, bone marrow, or spleen. This type of blood vessels has irregular blood-filled spaces with large sinusoid structure. This picture shows a better view of sinusoid capillaries. This type of capillary have a big fenestration. It has very few tight junctions. It has wide intracellular cleft as well as incomplete basement membrane. The structure of sinusoid capillaries allow for entrance of proteins, clotting factors, and new blood cells. Capillary beds are a network of 10 to 100 capillaries. They are usually supplied by a single arteriole. At the distal end, capillaries transition to venules, then join to the veins. Now let's talk about veins. Veins have great capacity for blood contaminant than arteries. Veins are made by relatively thinner walls. They have less muscular and elastic tissues. Veins can collapse when it's empty. It can expand easily. It has low blood pressure and it has steady blood flow. Typical blood distribution in a resting adult is shown in this slide. 64% of blood are in the veins. 9% blood is circulating within the pulmonary circuit. Arteries only contains 15% of the blood. Heart contains 7%. All the capillaries in the body contains 5% of the blood. There are different types of veins. Smallest veins are called post-capillary venules. When the diameter is up to 1 millimeter, the veins are called muscular venules. When the diameter is become thicker, it is called medium veins. Large veins whose diameter are larger than 10 millimeter are made by 3 layers of tunica. If a vein only has a very thin wall, large lumen, but there is no smooth muscle, this type of veins is called venous sinuses. In summary, this video talks about different types of blood vessels and their structures.